Always seem to forget that. Okay, so welcome everyone to our PI Academy for today. Today's topic is one that people reached out to us about. So it's PF5 grants, something that is new to a lot of you, and so we've asked Cerano Harrison from the CGI Hub, who's a great writer over here, and who I was telling Emily earlier today, everywhere I go on campus, everyone tells me how helpful Cerano is. In helping get grants where they need to be competitive. So a couple of just housekeeping notes. We are going to do questions at the end, just for ease of kind of, there's a lot to cover. But if you think of a question while you're in the process, please put it in the chat and we'll just start answering those when we get to the end. That's just the easiest way for us to handle it today. So I'll be watching the chat if you have any questions. Now let me go ahead and turn it over to Cerano, who's going to be spearheading our presentation today. You got it? Oh, there you go.
Very much. Sorry. I'm gonna share my screen.
I got the tap dance going. We're good. We are in the process of finalizing our March and April, late March and April and May API academies. So look for updates on those. There we go.
There we go. Perfect.
Okay. I'm having trouble with you, Cerano. Is that it might be me. I just want to confirm. Can you give me an audio check?
Check. Can you hear me?
Okay.
Perfect. All righty, hey everybody. Well, thank you so much for joining. Hopefully you're going to take something away from this presentation. So we're going to be presenting on the PH5 funding mechanism that's newly been implemented by the NIH. Oh, for introduction, I'm Cerano Harrison, grant writer for the CGI Hub. Okay, so for an overview of what we're going to cover today, we're going to explain the shift from R1s with foreign components to the new PF5 mechanism. So we're going to discuss that mechanism in totality. We're going to address the differences between the two funding mechanisms, so between the R1s with the foreign subawards and the PF5s. We'll provide additional guidance for the development of a competitive PF5 application. And we're going to provide you with some strategic considerations for future applications. And we're going to also review the submission cycle, as it is a new cycle that's different from the traditional February, June, and October R01 due date cycle. So what's changed for PIs? So foreign collaborators are not subawards anymore. So each foreign partner will get disaggregated upon funding, and they will get a standalone award that will be overseen by the granting agency. So this application is a multi-component application, as opposed to the other ones, which were single component applications. So the NIH will track this international funding directly. So the PF5 is a multi-component grant mechanism that's designed to support collaborative international research where domestic and foreign performance sites were jointly proposed but administratively distinct. So the core features of this are that there's a domestic prime organization, and then there's also the foreign international project components. So each international project becomes a standalone linked award upon funding. And there are also optional cores or training segments for complex programs that model other funding mechanisms like the K-12 P50, but we'll get into that a bit later. So why the shift from R1s with foreign subawards? So recently, the NIH released policy that prohibits traditional foreign subawards, and this was due to the lack of transparency in reporting on subawards consistent with the Federal Funding Accountability and Transparency Act subaward reporting requirements. So to satisfy this need, the NIH decided to implement the PF5 to track international funding transparently and maintain oversight of dollars awarded. So you're probably asking, if you're a PI or you're supporting PIs, what is the impact for you? And I can't say that you won't be doing backflips to jump through additional hoops, but your science will essentially be the same. There'll just be a different structure. There'll be more structure. So there's more administrative clarity on foreign roles as direct awardees. So involvement requires justification of roles and activities of these international collaborators. And they also have to be integrated into the overall project goals, and that should be specified. So for the most part, the PF5 just wants additional clarity and justification for international collaborators. So here's a structural comparison of the traditional R1 foreign subaward mechanism compared to the PF5. So with regard to foreign partner budgets for the R1s, there were subawards within the prime. However, with the PF5, that's now going to be an international project component. For award control, previously there was a domestic institution that controlled everything, but now the foreign organization is going to be disaggregated and they're going to receive their own linked award for management. So regarding the NIH oversight of the foreign work, previously it was indirect or limited, but now it's going to be direct via that linked mechanism. And for the application structure, as I previously mentioned, there was previously a singular component, but now it's going to be that multi-component structure that includes the overall research and international components as the required components, but there's also those optional core and the training programs. Now we are going to get into the individual PF5 components. So as I stated previously, the required components are the overall and research projects, which are 12 pages in length. And then you have the international project, which is 6 pages in length, but you have to have one per foreign collaborator. So if you are working with 2 international institutions, you're going to have 2 of those 6-page international projects. So the optional components are the core and the institutional career development training programs. And I'd like to specify that all instructions for development of an application are specified in the application guide and program announcement. So to get into the development of like the actual proposal. So starting with the overall, we're going to get into some project information. So activities outside of the United States or partnerships with international collaborators is a field that you're going to have to fill out. And seeing as if you will be pursuing the PF5, you're going to have an international component. So this will always be a yes. So you have to identify the countries of foreign components, both monetary and non-monetary in field 6. You additionally have to upload a foreign justification that specifies each foreign component and whether they're monetary or non-monetary. You also have to provide special resources or characteristics of the research project, as well as reasons why facilities or other aspects are more appropriate than a domestic setting. So what you're going to see throughout this presentation is there's a running theme of justification of the collaboration internationally. For the budget, the only budget information included in the overall component is the estimated project funding section of the SF424 R&R cover. So for additional indirect cost forms, the applicant organization should use the additional indirect cost form to detail its first 50,000 indirect costs on each subaward domestic organization that leads a component in accordance with their negotiated indirect cost rate agreement. So the applicant organization cannot claim the first $50,000 of indirect costs on an international organization that leads an international project. It's a bit of a mouthful, so I will leave you with that for a few seconds before proceeding. Okay, so now getting into the writing of it all. So the overall section has a 12-page limit. So for your specific aims, this should encompass the international collaborative project, including activities anticipated for both domestic and international performance sites. So in this section of the proposal, it's going to be a joint address of both domestic and international work that will then be teased out into the research project and the subsequent international projects. For the significance, the relevance to domestic and global audiences should be identified. Foreign justification provided in the research and related other project information form can be used to highlight appropriate resources. For your approach, the rationale and implementation of an international collaboration should be justified. And there's a newly implemented dispute resolution plan. So in this, you should address how implementation aligned with the NIH's plan for promoting gold standard science. And this will simply be, I believe, a subheading within your approach that's just titled dispute resolution plan, where you address this. So for the research project component, you can refer to the research project component for technical details of the experiment. So you don't have to, develop an entirely new narrative. You can repurpose work that you did in a previous section for this. So for this reason, it's anticipated that applicants may not need all 12 pages. Generally, it is encouraged for most applications to utilize the full length, but this is explicitly specified within the parent announcement that it is acceptable to use less pages for this. For administrative documentation for the overall component, letters of support must be provided from the ARR for each international project component. Multiple PD, PI leadership plan only include this plan if multiple individuals will serve as project directors or project investigators for the overall PF5 project. So project leaders of the international components are not required to be PDs or PIs for the overall component. But it is important to note that subawards to foreign organizations are not allowed, and that is for the entirety of the application. So moving on to the research project, this also has a 12-page limit, and there has to be at least one domestic research project led by the domestic applicant. You can have additional ones, but if you do plan to do that, you should consult with program staff prior to proceeding. Activities outside of the United States or partnerships with international collaborators is a yes or no field. If you select yes, a foreign justification has to be provided that only addresses the activity specific to the research project. So you shouldn't duplicate the international project component justification. And you also have to include a foreign justification in the file name. But you'll see all of this in the application guide. And for this section, no narrative is required. You will still be prompted to enter one through assist. However, the narrative only applies to the overall component. For the specific aims for the research project, you should include your broad long-range objectives, along with a concise hypothesis. So you should specify the project's relevance to the overall PF5 if multiple research projects are used. Your research strategy should provide a comprehensive description of the research project's significance, innovation, and approach. You should additionally identify the sites performing the proposed activities and articulate how the activities come together to address the proposed hypothesis. For the activities outside of the US or partnerships with international collaborators, this is again a field to select yes or no. So you'll check yes and identify the country for the project. Again, you have to upload a foreign justification describing the special resources or characteristics of the project, including reasons why facilities or other aspects of the project are more appropriate than in the domestic setting. So you're going to be prompted with this for each component. The project narrative for this component should focus on the relevance of the research conducted within the international project to public health. The facilities and other resources document should highlight the scientific environment in which the work will be done, and this can include a description of the logistical support available to address budgetary, regulatory, and other compliance concerns. For budget, you cannot include any subawards, consortium, or contractual costs to other foreign organizations. So all subaward budgets to the domestic organizations are allowed. For your specific aims, you should list the long-range objectives and goals of the proposed project. So the specific aims of an international project may be contained within a subset of that research project component's specific aims, or be independent of the research projects, but within the scope of the overall aims. So this is an opportunity to repurpose some of the work that you previously did for the research project if you don't want to expand anymore on the specific aims for this section. But additionally, you should provide justification for how the aims support the overall PF5 goal. For your significance, you should address the significance of the contribution of the foreign organization to the overall collaborative team effort for this project. For your approach, you should address the research approach taken by the foreign organizations to address the scope of work described in the specific aims. So you should clearly articulate how this approach integrates with the overall goals of the PF5. Again, letters of support must be provided by the institutional AOR. This must clearly indicate an understanding that upon funding, the foreign organization will fill the role as a recipient organization for the disaggregated award and will have all necessary registrations completed at this time. So getting into the cores, which are optional components. So the core component is intended for activities and resources that are needed to support multiple coordinated research projects falling under the PF5. So this is applicable to collaborations that are similar to other funding mechanisms like the PL1, P50, or U54. So some examples of cores are administrative, research subjects, in informatics and data management cores. These must be based at a domestic organization and request funds for domestic sites. So foreign organizations serving similar functions to cores would have to use the international project component type instead. So instead of having these cores, you would just have more of those 6-page international projects, but you would in turn structure similar to like an administrative core, research subjects core, whatever applies to your respective project. Again, the narrative is not going to be completed for the cores, but you will be prompted by assist screens to upload it, but that is only applicable to the overall component. For your specific aims, this should list the broad objectives and goals of the proposed core. So you should identify the core's relationship to the overall project goals and individual research projects. Your significance should clearly articulate which research projects and international projects will be able to leverage the core resources, expertise, and services. You can highlight the efficiencies cost savings and synergies produced as additional justification that will strengthen the quality of your proposal. For your approach, you should explain how it will be accessed by the other components of the PF5. So if the international collaborators are intended to leverage the services, explain how the core will facilitate international collaboration. And if existing resources of the applicant institution or partner institutions have similar functions, you should articulate how this core will provide distinct services and coordinate what existing resources is necessary to prevent unnecessary duplication. Now on to the institutional career development and training plan, which is also optional. So this component should only be used for applicants who are proposing biomedical research career and professional development training activities that support cohorts of scholars or trainees in connection with the research activities described in the overall research project and the international project components. So this plan is similar to other NIH funding mechanisms like the K-12, R25, or the T15. So these should only support domestic activities or scholars. So international support requires addition of or international project components. So those 6-page international projects will take the place of an institutional career development and training plan for domestic applicants. So yet again, don't complete the narrative, even though you will be prompted to do so. For the budget, the ICDT component uses the SF424 R&R detailed budget form rather than the PHS 398 training budget form. For your program plan, the proposed training section should clearly identify why international collaboration is critical for the training program. So the training should clearly align with the biomedical and health-related research questions and challenges raised in the overall section and any research project components. Program administration, the applicant should clearly describe how the leadership team of the ICDT component will coordinate with overall PF5, PD, and PIs, and any other component leadership, including the international project leaders. For the institutional environment and commitment to training, the applicant should address all the training performance sites supporting the described activities. So the described institutional letter should reflect the commitment from any participating domestic institutions, and any foreign organizations participating in the program should provide an institutional letter of support within the international project component for their institution. The plan for instruction in the responsible conduct of research, applicants should highlight any specific subject matter topics that are specifically relevant to the international collaboration proposed. For letters of support, any collaborating foreign institutions should provide the requisite information for their letter of support within the respective international project section. From data tables, applicants should be sure to use the international programs version of the training tables. The applicant should describe their method for identifying the relevant cohort of international trainees in the background section of the program plan, such as the reviewers will be able to assess the information provided in the data tables 1, 2, 5, and 8. So for some timelines and deadlines, so the first standard PF5 submissions will be due May 25th. So that's PA 26-002. But after that, there would be additional submissions on September 25th, January 5th, and May 25th annually thereafter. But something I want to stress is that early registration is essential. So now foreign partners are required to register for ERA Commons, SAM, and grants.gov. And considering that this registration can take 6+ weeks, it's imperative that you get on this early to ensure that there are no holdups at the time of submission, because the NIH specified that they will not allow submissions if the collaborators are not registered. Now, before I wrap up, I want to leave you with some key considerations and takeaways. So the PF5 is not simply an R01 with foreign work added. This is more of a center style approach with multiple components to this. So considering this, timelines and work plans should account for additional requirements. So you should be pretty diligent in establishing your team, possibly setting up a consistent meeting cadence to ensure that progress proceeds as needed to meet your deadlines. So foreign partner involvement requires careful integration, justification, and administrative expertise to ensure competitiveness. So when you are assembling your teams, be sure to enlist the expertise of people you're confident can be successful in leading these projects, and also are able to demonstrate that to the NIH to dispel any doubt that they are able to do this. Ultimately, that will affect the competitiveness and the review of your application. So the international projects are not foreign civil awards. The foreign institution does become an awardee with their own NIH grant number. So all international work will require justification, and that is just a running theme throughout this. So you are constantly going to be clarifying and justifying the international work that you're enlisting for your respective project. So request requires aims for domestic and international work that are scientifically integrated. And this will convey a sense of collaboration rather than working separately. So all international work must reflect the goals of the overall component. So you should convey clear staffing and leadership roles for each international project with appropriate expertise. Lastly, the domestic and international collaborators have to be registered. But that is about all I have for you on the new funding mechanism itself. So I would be happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thanks, Cerano. I know this is a lot, as it's a completely new thing. So I don't have any questions in the chat, but anybody here have questions? Oh, okay. First hand from Charlotte.
Hello. Okay, so I'm just trying to understand, is this going to work like an NSF collaboration, or like where the foreign will actually log in and do anything, or it actually just goes through us as the lead institution?
I can help with that.
Okay.
I saw Sarah's face. No, at this time, what we are observing, because we can't just set up a shell yet in Assist, it's not available yet to start populating, but you would get the information from them and we would set it up all in Assist from
Okay,
USC.
so it's very similar to the sub. It's just instead of a sub, it's a different mechanism, not through the R01. Okay.
And you're setting it up like, how it's the multi-component, you'd have like your overall, and then we'd have
Like
our
core.
USC
Okay.
component, and then you have the foreign component that you're filling out, that looks, like separate R01s basically when you're pulling
Okay.
it up in Assist. That's how they've described it thus far, and we would be filling it out. If that changes, we'll send out an announcement letting you know of that. But we haven't gotten to play around in it. We're really looking forward to being able to see it and start uploading
first
into
one,
Assist.
okay.
And then we can answer that more clearly and see if there's any hiccups that we need to work around.
Okay. I have two more questions, sorry. For the IDC question, did I hear you correctly that we don't charge on the first 50,000?
Let me go back to that slide specifically.
So the subaward, we wouldn't be issuing the subaward to foreign components. We would be able to get IDCs based on other subawards that would be.
Okay, so they can't claim. There was something in, sorry, sir, Sarana, there was something in your slide about the 50,000. And my third question, we can go ahead and talk about, is this just moving forward? Has USC already pulled out whatever foreign subs we need to worry about? We've already handled that? Or do we need to go backwards?
So these are for new
Okay.
these are applications. So this is
Moving
what
forward.
NIH considers going forward. They've already worked with individual awards that have involved subawards and worked around making the changes needed for existing awards.
Okay, perfect. Okay, yeah, I just didn't understand this part right here.
So we can't get 50,000 on the first 50,000 of indirect costs
Okay,
for what's being budgeted for the international organization, because it's not going to be a sub award to them. It's going to be, you know, a direct award from the NSF.
okay,
So
so
they are
for
just
our internal budget purposes, does that need to be changed? Is that a change on the spreadsheet somehow?
you would use you would have a, so that would just be adding in. So like thinking about a collaborative grant, you have separate budgets. So it wouldn't be even
Okay.
in truly our budget. You would need to keep up with what you're asking for as USC lead, and then what they're asking for on the foreign component to make sure that you're hitting the right budget target. But you wouldn't show that in our budget.
Okay, okay, I see. So their budget won't even, that's what you were saying. We're not issuing a sub award, so their budget will not even be included in our budget.
No.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Melissa, you've got a question, then there's one in the chat after that.
Yeah, thank you. That was a really excellent presentation. I appreciate your time in putting this together. My question is probably one that others have. Let's talk about money. So now that we have to do domestic project and an international project, has there been any discussion? And since there's technically different grants coming out, so like, could we as the core domestically ask for 500,000 and then ask for an extra 250,000 for the international site? And then how much could we ask for with these cores, for example? We ask for 100,000 for the core, et cetera.
Good question.
I'll help with that. That's going to be something that that's something that we have a question about too. We're going to have to take that up with the program officers to see if there's an expected amount. Now they're not going to want to see all the money go into the foreign sub award or the foreign component. They're going to want to see a large part of that stay within the domestic budget at that time. But now if you're wanting to go over that 500,000, you know, like we would normally do for the R01, you now don't have to do as much pre-work on that. But it is something with this new mechanism, because they are not clear yet about that. We'd have to go through the program officer just for clarification and make sure that the percentages are within what they would consider funding.
Hey, there is a question in the chat, and then I'll come to the other question here in a second. This is from Chase. How will the progress report and RPPR work? will the lead still submit through Commons?
So I was looking into the funding opportunity and I don't see any information specifying anything regarding that. So I can only assume that it is as it was previously, but that might be an additional follow-up for program staff to confirm.
And it might be too, since they do get a separate award, they will have their own reporting that they will have to do. But PI as lead would still ultimately to be responsible for the project progress and close out and results of the research.
Okay. Hold on a second. Well, next question from Hala, sorry.
Hi, thank you so much for this really informative presentation. My question is around how we fit sort of what we used to do into this structure. So many of us have applied for R01s or R21s where the project itself is 100% being implemented in terms of data collection in a foreign through a foreign institution or in a foreign country. So if we're actually interested in doing global health research, where the questions are specific to a population elsewhere, but where there is relevance for advancing science, both in the US and globally, in the past, we would have applied for an R01 where we have maybe, I don't know, 50% of the budget, largely for our technical inputs into a project that is implemented in partnership with a foreign entity. And so I'm trying to think about how we translate that into this structure. My initial understanding and reading of all of this was that we could still describe the overarching project as a collaborative project that has scientific aims and an approach that is a common approach. But what actually then now goes into what our role is as a US-based institution versus the foreign project. If we are largely providing the technical input, the organization, the potentially data analysis, but there isn't actually a US project in the sense of US data or US data collection. Do we collectively feel that this does not fit and that those kinds of projects are no longer acceptable at the NIH? I'm just trying to understand how we rewrite these R01s that we had planned previously that were 100% implemented in terms of data collection in a foreign country.
To the best of my knowledge, from what you said, you did mention a domestic component and relevance to, I guess, the things domestically. So I think given the PF5 mechanism, so long as you do clarify that there is both domestic and international relevance, that it would still be worth pursuing. I think in your case specifically, it may be a matter of leaning into those international components. I know they're only about 6 pages in length. I don't know how many international collaborators you have. And since there is limited guidance as of now, my suggestion would be to essentially disaggregate your proposal structure into additional international components while still doing as much as you can for the stuff that's relegated for the domestic application, like the research project and the overall. The only hiccup I think you might run into is more so for like that research project specifically, seeing as that is like that 12-page document, whereas the overall can be considerably shorter. So we might have to follow up on that. But I do think your research is still worth pursuing with this funding mechanism, as it still seems to fit within the scope of guidelines for funding. Hopefully that answered your question.
You might even consider a core, maybe like data core, the statistical core. Like, how are you, domestically supporting this project technically, and put those into those other optional sections to really justify the existence of the domestic contribution.
That's helpful. Thank you.
I think Melissa has her hand up.
I was going to make a comment, and certainly I don't want to pretend to know how you guys are doing your research by any means, but I think my impression of this is that, a lot of us kind of justify obviously the burden of why this is important, but that we have these issues here at home, and that by doing the research project internationally, we have a higher power, a larger sample size. So then I think maybe what we could do to be creative and competitive moving forward is that the domestic project could be something more policy related. So kind of looking at, everything Layla, you do how eggs can improve someone's nutritional diet. Maybe we look at the impact of egg consumption here in the United States. And, it's not ideal, but maybe just trying to be creative of how we could do something smaller here to kind of justify and then look at comparisons while still maintaining most of the money abroad.
Okay. Any other questions? Vandita?
Thank you for this presentation. I just wanted to ask about strategy as well. Part of me is wondering for the scenarios where, as Hala described, where the implementing partners are kind of doing the data collection from a strategy perspective, is it better that maybe we submit an R01 to our partners in international institutions, and then we are the sub? Is that one way that we can think about strategy? But I don't know, I don't have a good sense of whether that has a worse chance of getting funded because it's an international organization. And given the current environment, that might not be, so I'm just trying to figure out what's the best strategy. Just any advice on that?
Melissa, is that in response?
I will just give one example. So right when all this happened, we had an R01 that was going in, and what we ended up doing was pivoting it, and our international colleagues put it in. So there's an R01 mechanism that only international folks can go after, but it's less money. And so then we are a sub-award, but then that's been kind of a mess. So I'm actually just now a consultant because it honestly was just a huge mess. So that might be an option in data that is available, but it's less money.
That's helpful. Thank you.
Edward?
I just wanted to go back to the question that Hala asked, and then there were comments from Emily and Melissa. So I think the key question for me is, let's say Hala, can Hala put through a project in the way that she would have done it before? Admittedly, the mechanism and the forms and all that is different, but where all the data collection is happening in a country or countries. Is that likely to be funded with significant involvement from USC? Or is it strategic to have a token, let's say, domestic data collection project, because that's going to enhance the likelihood of funding?
Regarding likelihood, seeing as this is the first, I can't speak too much to that. But mentioning, beefing up that domestic component, to me, that sounds like a feasible way of, conveying domestic involvement to enhance the, the strength of the proposal overall. But I might not be able to advise based on the limited knowledge of this funding mechanism as of now.
The reason I'm asking is that it seems to me there's a cost for including a token component, because then reviewers say, this is a token component. They're not really serious about this. They're just doing this because they want to make it look like that NIH should be funding this, right? So I think we're going to need to evolve to an answer about this.
And to expand from Cerano's response, because I completely back what Cerano is saying. We don't know this yet. And I think it also depends on the institute and the research project itself. It's going to be a case by case basis. And if you're adding the domestic data collection, it would need to be, you'd have to have a good justification for it, not just for it to be added, because reviewers will see right through that. But if you design your project with key on, on the research methods and the design, the process, to why that specifically matters to have that domestic data collection, I think that that's passable, but you don't just add it in for the sake of trying to increase the competitiveness on the PF5. And I think that is something that would need to be taken to your program officer to fill them out, with this being a new solicitation, a new structure for NIH. And the program officers might not have all the answers to it right now either. They've been trying to roll this out for a while. They have rolled it out. There are plenty of gray areas in the guidance. And we've been in talks with other universities based on the PF5, and we all have the same questions, and it's all going through our research development channels with those same questions. So I think us getting through that first round too in May will give us some more insight as to how NIH is handling certain case scenarios.
And I would definitely be open. I think if the researchers on here want to get together and just kind of have a conversation about, like, chat through this a little bit more strategy, I'd be happy to do that. And then maybe we could come back to the affairs office in the interim while you guys talk to other colleagues.
Yeah. Thank you, Melissa, for offering to do that. That would help us help y'all as well. So thank you. And we're happy to sit in and chat too if you have questions, and we can keep brainstorming it together.
Well, we have a great track record of really strong international research and researchers here. And I would love to see that continue. We appreciate y'all taking the time to look at this mechanism.
Well, it all goes to Dr. Harrison. He's been researching it and really working through and comparing to how to translate from different mechanisms into the PF5. We're very lucky to have him in the VPR's office and CGI Hub.
Right. I don't see any other questions, but we do have time if you've got another question. All right. We appreciate you coming today on such a beautiful day outside. So we will we have a recording of this. We'll get out that if you want to look back at it. But thanks for joining us, and we'll look for more PI Academy announcements soon. And thanks, Cerano, for doing an awesome job.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you.